What is up guys, Morton here from SteamFirst.com reviewing the indie arcade racing game Race the Sun, developed by FlipFly and released on December 9th, 2013 for $10 on Steam. It isn't often that a game's title tells you exactly what you'll be doing throughout the entire game, but it does exactly that in Race the Sun. The whole idea is that you control a very fast spaceship that runs off solar energy, and you're traveling towards the sun at an incredible speed. Well, sort of towards the sun. But not really, because you can never reach the sun. You travel forever, dodging obstacles that come at you constantly. It's reminiscent of an old Flash game from the late 90s or early 2000s. It works well though. The ship is fast, the controls are fluid, and the gameplay is really smooth. You basically just travel forward in your ship until you either smash into something and get blown to pieces, or your ship runs out of power. Now, the problem with running out of power is it happens very fast. I'm not a scientist, but I feel like if you are capable of designing a spaceship that travels at absurd speeds, and it's solar powered, you'd find a way to make sure that it doesn't run out of energy if it's in the shade for literally 5 seconds. That being said, it does add an interesting gameplay element, because it means not only do you have to avoid objects directly in front of you, but you also have to look at the height of the objects and also be on the lookout for clouds to avoid the shadows. To add a little more complexity, there are also various power-ups, such as the ability to jump or a shield that prevents one lethal crash. This part is pretty important, because one of the power-ups causes the sun to go back up for some completely inexplicable reason. Apparently we're traveling faster than light, I'm not really sure. Anyways, if you don't hit any of those power-ups, the sun will go down around the end of the second region and you'll run out of energy. Also you can level up, but that caps out at level 25. Leveling up gives you various things such as decals for your ship or attachments to make certain things easier. You level up by completing challenges, which range from things very easy, like clearing a region without crashing, to very difficult, like clearing 2 regions while only moving left. Gameplay gets a 4 out of 5. It's interesting and fun, with about as much complexity as you'd expect from a game like this. The graphics are pretty simplistic in this game, as you'd expect from an indie developer, but they have a good feel to them and are well done. It was rather plain though. Everything was white or grey for the most part, including what appears to be trees, with a couple of exceptions. Adding some color to things would have been nice, though perhaps doing so would have taken away from the minimalistic style they were going for. There were no problems with clipping or anything of that sort though, and it all looks fairly good, and I really wish I could say the same about the sound. I don't remember the last time I got so bored of a soundtrack in a video game. It's just so repetitive. I understand indie games don't have a large amount of money, and the money they do have needs to go to development and design work and advertising and everything else, but surely somebody could have made a 3 to 5 minute track to play instead of a 30-second loop through the entire thing. The sound effects aren't terrible though. Crashing into something sounds similar to what I imagine a flimsy spaceship traveling at what is apparently light speed crashing into things would sound like. Graphics get a 3.5 while sound gets a 2. Now, usually I like to talk about story first because story is one of the most important parts of games to me, but you'll notice I haven't touched on it yet. The reason for that is simple. The story literally doesn't exist. You turn the game on and you start playing. No cutscenes, no text, nothing at all in terms of story. I'm usually big on story, but this didn't even bother me much. I don't know what type of story this game could have even had. You just fly straight forever. There's no ending to the game, so it would be impossible to come to a conclusion. But because there's no ending, it means the game will last you forever until you get bored of it, so that's a plus. As for how fast you'll get bored, it's hard to say. They change the course every 24 hours, which feels like too long to me. The course gets repetitive if you play it over and over, and I think it would have been better if they changed the course maybe every 2 hours just by rearranging the order of the obstacles. There's a high scoreboard to compete with everyone else, but it's easy to just memorize the course as you go and do well if you play for a significant amount of time, so it becomes less about skill and reaction times and more about just remembering which way to move at which times. Although this is kinda dumb, it's not really that big of a deal in the end. There's also another mode called Armageddon, which plays the same as normal mode, but is significantly more difficult and has a separate leaderboard and separate obstacles and such. As far as replayability goes, Race the Sun gets a 5 out of 5. It literally never ends, and you can keep playing trying to improve your personal best or compete for the top rankings. Overall, Race the Sun is a pretty solid arcade racer, but it isn't for everybody. You never race against other players, only against their high scores, and after you hit level 25, there's nothing really left to grind for if you aren't trying to get the highest score possible, so the only reason to play would be to compete on the leaderboards. Race the Sun gets a 4 out of 5. It's very fun to play, and if you enjoy this style of game, you'll get a lot out of it for $10. But because it completely lacks a story and not everybody enjoys competing on the high score charts, it's hard to recommend for everyone. If you're a fan of the genre and the style, check it out for sure, but if you're looking for something with a lot of depth and an interesting story, definitely pass on this one.